All right, good evening. So tonight we are joined by David Dizzard, and David is a professor at Seoul Women's University and Hanyang University, holds a PhD in Korean Studies and hosts the Korea Deconstructed podcast. He also publishes regularly in the Korea Times and arranges the annual RAS Korea Youth Panel. So tonight he will speak about Korean films from the past few decades and how they offer insight into Korean culture, history, and society. After the lecture, there will be time for questions. Please welcome David.
I think that should be okay with a microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the introduction, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. I might
That's the Zoom mic, though.
Oh, this is the Zoom mic. Okay. Yep. Okay. I've never given this talk before. Sometimes people stand up here and they give this like talk of a book that they've been promoting for 4 or 5 years and everything is very smooth and fluid. What I'm about to say to you tonight, I've never done before. So there might be hiccups. There might be things that don't make sense. I might look at the PPT and try to figure out what I was thinking when I chose that picture. But today I'm going to talk to you about Korean film and culture. Now, when you consider some of the other topics that people talk about at this very prestigious event, talking about film and things like that doesn't seem that sophisticated. So I thought I would try to convince you by starting with a quote with one of Korea's most eminent sociologists, Professor Chang-dong. And he's actually sat just right there. It's nice to see you, sir. Thank you very much for coming. Please read his 2 books related to the concept of compressed modernity. In his most recent one, The Risk of Compressed Modernity, he says this: is cultural production a much more effective form of intellectual reflection on social life than increasingly mechanical academic social sciences, especially in the context of compressed modernity? Can we learn more from films than data? Can we learn more from movies than statistics? Can we learn more about what's happening in Korea by watching the movies they make rather than looking at graphs and 3.4% increases in GDP and 0.7% fertility rate? I'm not sure, but that's what we'll try to do today. We'll try to understand Korea through the movies. I asked Matt before we started, do you think I look like Dave Grohl when I was young? Kind of, for those of you who know who Dave Grohl is. Yeah, so I went to university in the south of England at a place called Portsmouth. And when I was there, one of my friends gave me 2 VHS cassettes, and I knew nothing about Asian cinema. I was doing Brechtian theater and French expressionism, all of these things. And my friend gave me on VHS, Ninja Scroll and Audition. If you've never watched them, don't watch them. Because I had no idea what they were. And I went home and I got in the mood for cinema. So I put on my Bob Marley CD and I lit some incense sticks and did what students do at that time. And then I pressed play. And I was pretty sure the people that made these films should go to prison, or they should be checked, or something should go on, because I was seeing something in these movies, Japanese these are, by the way, that I'd not seen before and that I was not necessarily ready for. I thought these were the kind of things that were symptomatic of, I don't know, psychological problems, social problems. There was talk in our community of certain snuff movies and pornos that you shouldn't watch and things like this. And they were reverberating underground around our culture, but these were coming out of Japan. And I thought, oh my God. And from there, it was just one little step and a jump until I started watching more and more Korean movies. And I finally found my way into Asian cinema. And I've got a list of them, just, a selection of them here for you, from Sopyeondae to Peppermint Candies, Haline Tuok, 200-Pound Beauty, and JSA. And as I was watching these movies, the thing that got me is that the endings didn't make sense. None of it made sense to me in the cultural framework in which I grew up. Now, these are all quite old movies and that their endings are quite well documented. But the reason I've put many movies on there is not just to say, oh, this was just one example, this was just one movie that ended weirdly. This one kind of ends in child abuse and it's horrific. And this one, they don't catch the killer. I'm allowed to spoil 25-year-old movies, right? This one, the good guy dies, he commits suicide, and that's very honorable. And it's while I'm watching these movies, and I'm used to watching James Bond, and at the end of the movie, he kills the bad guy, he gets the girl, he makes a quip, and they sail off into the sunset, and we have a cup of tea, and it's very lovely. But at the end of these movies, the good guy was dying, and there was suicide, and you know, they didn't find the beauty inside. They just stayed young and had plastic surgery. And it wasn't just that they were weird movies. It seemed to be that they were accepted and part of the culture. When Korean people watch these, they didn't go, oh, wow, that's messed up. They just went, yay. And they understood it and it resonated. I'm generalizing 50 million people. But I started watching these movies and they didn't make sense to me. And I loved it. It was like finding a new genre of music that I hadn't heard before. So I'll talk about some of these movies. Talking about a new genre of music that I hadn't heard before, it was Jocelyn Clark. I looked like Dave Grohl when I was young. I don't anymore, but I still love music and play a lot of it as much as I can. It was Professor Jocelyn Clark who taught me about Korean music, because I can play music and I can play funk and blues and rock and stoner rock, and I know how to do it. I know the modes and the scales and these things. But then I would listen to gugak, I would listen to pansori, I would listen to traditional Korean music, and I would say, "The hell is that? I can't even jam to like, I don't know." And she had to explain to me just the whole foundation of Korean music was different. Instead of thinking of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. She was like, no, David, it's 12. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. And I was like, oh, wow, my brain is wired wrong for Korean music. And slowly, by understanding that, I realized I had to change my brain to listen to Korean music. It wasn't a problem with the music. It was a problem with my brain. She taught me a wonderful idea, Jocelyn Clark, about Han, and I'd never heard this from her before, or anyone. Seokyeonjae, the movie here, is a wonderful movie about Han. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but during this movie, you have a young woman, and she's a traditional Korean music singer. But she doesn't quite sing well enough. She doesn't sing with the beauty of the Korean people. She doesn't transmit this intergenerational trauma that's being carried on well enough. So what does the father do to her? He intentionally blinds her. He makes her go blind, and then she can't see anymore. And then he says to her, and now sing. And so then she sings blind, and she sings with sorrow and disappointment. And everybody went, yes. And then she understood Han. Jocelyn Clark taught me that Han was not a feeling, but rather Han was a way of playing music. Han was a mode, an expression. So for those of you that know David Gilmour of Pink Floyd or this type, Han is when you do long, bendy notes on the guitar and it sounds almost like crying. That's what Han is. It's not a feeling, but it's a mode of expression. And when you have to, in gugak, represent military figures, it was all very staccato and tang, 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 tang. And these were the military generals marching. Han was a soft, bendy thing. And so I was beginning to understand the music. Our friend, David Mason, is having a very hard time at the moment. So I was thinking about him as I was putting this up. He's a wonderful gentleman. And he got me onto this idea. I am going to talk about film, I promise. He got me onto this idea that in East Asia, they don't have the concept of the devil. Satan, Beelzebub, Mephistopheles, that red guy with the horns and the tail, he doesn't exist in East Asia. And so this way that I'd grown up my whole life, when there's a problem for a character and the angel comes out one side and the devil comes out the other side, and it's this battle between good and evil that I'd grown up with my whole life, he told me, that's so Western, David. It doesn't exist here. Yeah, okay, they have like Tokkebi and Mangte Halaboji and Horangi, they have tigers and these kind of things, but this personification of evil and this ultimate reflection of good is very Western. And when I heard that, I just went, oh, wow, I've been living like a frog in a well, or I've been a prisoner of culture for so long. And one of the reasons why I didn't understand all those movies I was watching is because I was watching it through a rather Western framework of culture And so I had to kind of change my brain. I had to relearn music, to relearn culture. This is one of my favorite stories about learning this type of culture. I really like this one. For those of you that have heard it before, you might know it, but for those that haven't, just one time before we talk about movies. What I like about this story, The Farmer and His Horses, is that if I say this to my Chinese students in class, they all go, oh yeah, of course. We've been hearing this our whole life, Professor. And my international students look at me and go, what the hell is that? And it's like me trying to tell Chinese students about Easter or Jesus or things like this. You try to tell Chinese students about somebody walking on water and rising from the dead, and they're like, but all the other people get it. And so this is a story that my Asian students knew very well. The story of The Farmer and His Horses, very briefly, is that one day there's a farmer, and guess what? He has a horse. The horse runs away. And so the neighbor comes and says, oh my God, your horse has run away. What terrible news. And the farmer, being a good Taoist, he said, good news, bad news, who knows? The next day, his horse comes back, but this time his horse is running with 3 other horses because that's what horses do. And so now the farmer has 4 horses, and the neighbor looks upon with amazement. Now his farm is bigger, and he says, now you've got 4 horses. Isn't that amazing? And the farmer said, good news, bad news, who knows? Because the next day, the farmer's son is riding on one of the horses to try to break it in and tame it, but he falls off and breaks his leg. And the neighbor says, oh my God, now your son can't work on the farm. And the farmer says, yes, that good news, bad news, who knows, right? You've got some way to become a Chinese Taoist farmer, but I believe in you. Because the next day the army come round and they're looking for young men to take to war. And they see the boy with the broken leg and they think, well, we can't take you. The idea that something is good or the idea that something is bad is a bit different here. Bad and good are the same thing. Yin and yang are the same thing. Night and day, man and woman, tian and earth, and all of these things. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, it makes so much sense to me. And what really resonated with me is when something good would happen to me in my life, like I tell my wife, I'm going on television tomorrow, I'm going to do this. My wife will look at me and she'll go, "Ya 남편 조심해." And she'll say, husband, be careful, because something good is happening. She thinks that means something bad is coming soon. She doesn't see it as necessarily good. She sees things as intertwined. And I was realizing maybe my whole structure of good and bad and right and wrong is just completely Western. I'm fascinated by this idea at the moment of Tongdos Hogi and nature and how this all works. The Western idea of nature is everything except humans, right? Taeyeon, the word nature means everything: mountains, rivers, trees, dogs, cats, mosquitoes, wind, everything except humans. The Western version of nature. There's us and there's nature. The Eastern version is we're in that nature. We are part of that nature. And so I decided that I couldn't use my rules to understand the works of art. I had to watch these works of art and understand what rules they were presenting to me. And so that's why I started to do this. But what movies would I watch? I am getting there. This was one idea I came up with when I've been studying Hallyu and media, is that sometimes, and it's very interesting, people analyze things like Squid Game or BTS's, Butter, Dynamite, Permission to Dance trilogy, and they will draw or make analyses about Korean culture. And sometimes there's a difference, in my opinion, and you're very free to disagree, with Korean content and K content. And this is my own sort of summarization of this, in that Korean content is things that are made by Korean people for Korean people. They're not designed with the outside world in mind. They're not putting, I'll be a little bit sensitive here, but they're not necessarily putting overt LGBT elements in there, or transgender elements in there, or multicultural elements in there. They're just resonating with what the Korean culture is doing at that time. And then you will find K content, which is specifically designed for an international audience. And it's, we are going to appeal to these people. I've put these two as an example here. And, there's lots that exist in the middle, and there's some that exist both. But I was fascinated by Hoksak Sugatsuda, because The Guardian never wrote about it. The New York Times never wrote about it. The Wall Street Journal never wrote about it. And everybody in Korea was watching it and uploading photos of themselves crying, right, and doing this thing. And it was huge here. It was Korean content for Korean people. And it worked. And so when I did this, I tried to look specifically and be aware of this distinction. Because I think this is the last one before I get to the movies, I promise. This is from Clifford Geertz. Culture is the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Really like this. So what are the stories that Korean people tell themselves about themselves? What kind of people are we? What are our values? What do we believe in? Who are our heroes? I'm going to start with this one, Ode to My Father. I'm just really curious. I'll do this for every movie. You don't have to put your hand up. Who's seen this movie? Okay, some people, very good. This is Korea's 4th highest grossing movie of all time, right? So this is huge in the country. When teachers at elementary school or middle school are leaving the classroom, they just put on this movie for the young kids as like a propaganda. What I do, the titles are very interesting. 2014, Hong-jin is one of my favorite actors. In English, it's Ode to My Father. In Korean, it's 국제시장, which means international market. So even the titles are different there. And what I've done with my students, and just to get, I have 9 lectures per week. All right, it's an outrageous amount. I have 6 at one university and 3 at another, and I have 500 students, and I have to teach them about Korean history and culture. And after a few weeks, all of these students, I make them watch this. So I've seen this movie literally about 65 times. Because I watch it 4 or 5 times a week every semester. And I want to tell you about their responses to this movie. You guys know this, right? What Seoul used to look like in 1968 and how it changed, because young people don't get this. When young people come here and they're seeing Hongdae and Sinchon and they're going to Uljiro, they're like, what? This place was poor? Even the Korean students don't believe this place was poor. I love this. Even my Korean students don't know where this is. They look at this photo and I say, where is this? And like, you know, if they're low-key racist, they'll go, Vietnam. Like, no, it's not Vietnam. Like, it's Gwanghwamun, but without the palace and without Isun Shin and without Sejongdoang. And it's impossible for people to contemplate Korea without the things that make it Korea. And I can show them these photos and they start realizing slowly, but Ode to My Father is the movie that just punches them in the gut and it gives them such an intense reaction to this. War is a feature of this movie. It's really hard to explain to young people today something about the Vietnam War. It's not even in their memory. It's so far beyond their comprehension. And I don't mean to gaslight young people today, but I see their reactions. And they watch this movie and they think, oh, wow, there was war here. And it reminds them of the fact of war. And when they see this, and it's very much a gukbong, like patriotic, overly Korean version. I love hearing my Vietnamese students talk about this representation and movie, because they don't call it the Vietnam War in Vietnam. They call it the American War. And I tell them to go and read this book. And slowly after watching this movie, they're starting thinking about, oh, wow, there was war. We don't have to go to war. That's good, isn't it? Yes. And then we get this idea of suffering. One of the key lines in this movie, here you have it. Patience is bitter, but the fruit is sweet. And this character here, his name is Toksu. And this movie, Ode to My Father, is basically Forrest Gump, but the Korean version. And it goes from when he's a 8-year-old boy until basically he's dead. And he suffers the whole movie. He has no happiness, he has no joy, but what he does is he works, he provides, and he suffers. And as a result, his family benefit. This is one of the pivotal scenes right towards the end. His whole family are in here celebrating, and they're laughing and they're enjoying themselves. And he's in there by himself crying, hurt. And his whole life, he never thought that his own life was worth more than the nation's or worth more than his family's. What's the most important thing? This is a movie about being kajang, being the head of the family. What's more important, you or your family? Family, of course. It's quite interesting to me how that has changed, because I think in South Korea, if you ask somebody in the 80s, what's more important, you or your family, you or the country, they would say the country. 우리나라, 당연하죠. In the 90s, 2000s, what's more important, you or the country? 당연하죠. 우리나라, fighting. Now I think we're at the stage where if you ask people what's more important, your life or the country, they're probably going to say my life, my happiness. And so Doksu is one of the last elements of this. And it's littered with Confucianism. I love this movie because it doesn't project like not anthropomorphic. It doesn't put modern values into the past. It's very easy to watch K-dramas today and they get a woman and they send her back to the Joseon dynasty and she makes bibimbap and it's all very good. But it's kind of like girl boss, queen never cry, modern understandings of feminism projected into the past, which is nice, but this movie never does that. This movie never does that. There's a line from the mother and it'll break your heart. She asks her son when he's 8 years old, she says, Doksu, imagine that the house was on fire and you were inside and I was outside with all the other children. Should I come in to save you? And Doksu, with a tear in his eye, says, of course. And the mother says, no, I wouldn't come in and save you. Because then who would feed the other kids? I'm a mother, and that's what mothers do. And it was almost like she didn't have a personality. She didn't have an individuality. She was just 그냥 Doksu 어머니. And you watch this film and you realize that they're not individuals, they're playing roles, they're playing titles, and they're living up to it. And it's very oppressive, but that's how it plays. One of my favorite ideas of Confucianism, just before I go to the next movies, is that when I was trying to understand Confucianism, what is Confucianism? How is it different from Christianity? In Confucianism, this was quite progressive at the time, they believed that humans can understand the difference between right and wrong. We don't need divine intervention. We don't need the bush to start burning, the tablets to come down from the sky. As human beings, we know the difference between right and wrong. Should I eat fried chicken every day, or sometimes should I eat salad? Well, sometimes eat salad. Right? Should I phone my grandmother or should I just ignore? I should phone my grandmother. As human beings, we know the difference between right and wrong, but Confucianism says the problem is sometimes we don't do it. We know what we should do. We know what we should do, but sometimes we do what we want. And this is an amazing thing because Confucianism encourages you as a person, never do what you want. Do what you should at every available moment. And I break my students' brains, or sometimes I uplift them and sometimes I really depress them when I ask them this question. Imagine since the age of 10 until now, you always did what you should do. Where would you be? What would you look like? Who would you be dating? What would your salary be? And they think, oh yeah. And then they think, yeah, but I don't want to do that. I want happiness. Sometimes I just want to say, F it, I'm going to have chocolate ice cream. I'm going to do these things. And I get it. Imagine everyone in the world always did what they should do. There would not be hungry people. There would not be people dying. There would not be this. And so there is this idea in this movie about duty and about suffering. Korea is a dark, oppressed country. I teach my students for 16 weeks. I give them all these theories. And at the end of it, the only thing they remember is that I told them this quote by RM. And they write it in all their journals. They're like, yay, RM, BTS. And, is it worth it? Is it worth it if some people suffer in society? And this is what it makes you figure. To go from that to that, but some people have to suffer. Is it worth it? How do you answer that? How do you answer that? But this is the thing that makes people start questioning that. Is it worth it? To go from that to that, how many lives is it worth it? Let's just do RN's quote before we move on, because it is a good one for those that don't have it. People were criticizing him. The Spanish newspaper saying, your country, everyone's stressed, everyone's, you're not having kids, you need to calm the hell down. What the hell are you doing? And this is what RM said, and this is a K-pop idol. a very intelligent one, but he said, people in the West just don't get it. Korea is a country that has been invaded, devastated, torn in two. Just 70 years ago, there was nothing. We were getting help from the IMF and the UN, but now the whole world is looking at Korea. How is that possible? How did that happen? Because people are working for hard to improve themselves. You're in France or the UK, countries that have been colonizing others for centuries, and you come to me with, oh God, you put so much pressure on yourselves. Life in Korea is so stressful. Well, yes, that's how you get things done. That's the movie Ode to My Father. And it's RM's perspective here, right? It's not necessarily my perspective. No, happiness is the most important thing. Individualism is the most important thing. Wasn't necessarily here. This is, I asked my Chinese student, her name is Shupong, but her English name is Evelyn. And the first time she watched this movie with me, she cried for about 20 minutes. My students, when they watch Ode to My Father, like, I worry because at the end, I get like 15 women running out crying to the bathroom. And if anybody's standing outside, they're going to think I'm abusing my students or something like that. It's actually very worrying. And it's become sort of a meme that students will post on their Instagram stories. Oh, David's going to show this again. And it's kind of like this. But all of these people, and this is just one example, there will be another one here, right? All of these people from all different, they watch Ode to My Father and they say to me, I kind of see Korea differently now. When I see the old people on the street, I imagine Doksu, because they used to just imagine old people as in the way. Like, get out of the way. Like, come on, like, what are you doing? And now when they see the old people in the street, they're like, oh, wow, you went through some stuff. You lived through some poverty, some hardship, some oppression. This was hard for you guys. And it really opens their eyes. And this will be a French Vietnamese guy understanding his Vietnamese father for the first time because he watched a Korean movie. And that's really nice. And this is Chinese people and Muslims, and they finally get it just because of this movie. Nothing that I taught them. And it's the same for me. I sometimes think when I'm in the street and I see an old person, maybe that's Doksu. And then this is getting really bad when it comes to politics. And I say to my students, you like Doksu, right? The thing about the old guy, he's not a nice guy. He's stubborn, he's belligerent, he's grumpy, but they like him. And then I say to them, who do you think he votes for? And they go, I used to like Doksu, but now he votes for the other team. I don't like him. But slowly they're developing empathy of why people have the values that they have. And so I think it's a really powerful movie. Is it Han? Is it Shinpa? Is a term I'm really kind of interested in. Not so much the Han, but this emotional making people cry. At the end of the movie, when he's reunited with his family, the tears are incredible, but it's for a happy reason. At the end, the family is reunited, at least him and his sister, and it's a happy moment, and everyone's crying. It's not meant to be like that. It's happy, it's reunited, but everyone is bawling their eyes out. And there's a beauty in the sadness. There's something in there. A wonderful film. I want to go to this gentleman now, Park Chan-wook. He's my favorite. 안녕하세요, 감독님. One day on my podcast, one day. This is, I was getting drunk with Daniel Tudor on Saturday, and he says he knows him. He's going to try and help me. Here's what he said. I portray something irrational, a phenomenon that cannot be explained logically, a portrait of humanity as neither good nor evil, but rather as a complex existence. This is what South Korea's biggest and best film director does. He's not trying to say this is good, this is evil. He's like, humans are messed up, humans are ambiguous, humans are gray, and here we go. And Park Chan-wook has made some movies that will make your eyes water. In the early 2000s, he's making movies that almost glorify and portray in a positive light North Korea. Old Boy, Old Boy is about incest. Old Boy is about memory. It's one of the darkest movies you're likely to see. This one, 2006, Cyborg Jiman Quintana. This in 2006 features a female protagonist talking about mental health and nobody accepting her and having eating difficulties. in 2006. And the country wasn't ready for it. Park Chan-wook was literally 20 years ahead of his time. People are slowly coming up to these ideas now that, you know, yeah, female protagonists, mental health, beauty standards. He did this in 2006. Then in 2016, when he did Hagashi, he got two of the country's biggest actors. How do I say this politely at the RAS? Denny's already said that whatever I say doesn't reflect the attitudes of the RAS, so I'm just going to say it. He got two of the country's biggest actors on screen to scissor each other for about 3.5 minutes. Not 30 seconds, 3.5 minutes. And then he did it again. And then he did it again. And I've played this movie to my students in class, and they'll slowly start looking around at me going, Professor, what the hell are you doing to us? But he shows the things that you're not meant to see, Park Chan-wook. I do want to talk about his latest film, but I've only seen it twice. I need to see it again. It's an amazing movie. I really want to spoil it because I can't believe how he ended the movie again. He ends the movie like that, and the movie ends and you're like, oh my God, really? You just did that. There's so much in these Korean movies that challenges everything you know about the country and the stereotypes and what they're doing. Incredible. But today, instead, I'll talk to you about Decision to Leave. Has anyone seen Decision to Leave? Wow, I didn't expect that. That's amazing. Okay, this I think is his masterpiece. This is Park Chan-wook's, in my opinion, his best movie. And it's really weird because all the sex and the incest and the violence and all of those things that you associate sometimes with Park Chan-wook, there's nothing in there. This is a love story between this man and this woman, and they kiss once, and then she kills herself. That's it. That's the movie. And it's the best thing I've ever seen. And it's the most romantic thing I've ever seen. And at the end of the movie, she goes to kill herself, right? The woman at the end of the movie, Park Chan-wook was trying to create the most beautiful suicide. I remember when I was young and I asked my mum, what happens if babies die before they're christened, Mum? She was like, shut up. Limbo, okay. What happens if people commit suicide, right? I grew up with these ideas of what happens. This was a portrayal of a scene of suicide at its most beautiful. You're meant to watch this and watch this woman commit suicide and go, wow. And you're like, are you really asking me to do that? It completely messed with every understanding of it that I've ever had. This is one, Tang Wei, by the way, an amazing actor. She was kicked out of China after she did the movie Lust Caution. Please go and watch Lust Caution, but not with children in the room. And this is a key line of Decision to Leave. Confucius said, the wise love the sea, the benevolent love the mountains. And all of this movie is about Confucianism and Taoism. It's about the mountains and the sea. And in East Asian philosophy, mountains represent Confucianism. Why? Because like Doksu, they're upright, they're virtuous, they never change. The mountain is unbending. The mountain always does the right thing. Taoism, Lao Tzu, right? This is water. You be like water, you adapt. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put it into a tumbler, it becomes the tumbler. Water is flexible. Water never loses. And so this is a movie about how Confucianism and Taoism are coming together, but they can never quite meet. Yin and yang can never exist at the same time. It can't be day and night at the same time. You can't have heaven and earth at the same time. They're always separate. So these kind of irreconcilable lovers that are destined never to meet. And it just, you have to watch this movie before I go to, you have to watch this movie about 4 times. This is like the most, I hate myself for saying this. It sounds so pompous, right? But you have to watch this movie about 4 times before you can watch it for the first time. Because the first couple of times you watch it, you're like, what? And then once you've watched it 3 or 4 times and you get it, you can sit back and just enjoy the mastery of this movie, because every scene ties into the other. It's like a poem with all of these internal rhymes and color schemes and drips and repeated words and emotives. And it's just 2 and a bit hours of the most incredible piece of art that I've ever seen. And it amazes me that it's not talked about more. And it amazes me that there's nothing Western in this movie. It's completely rooted in Asian philosophy, and he's not trying to make it for Western audiences. He's trying to make it for the people here. One kiss, an adulterous love, and it ends with a suicide that's so beautiful. I don't know if you gave me that plot when I was in England, if I would go and watch that movie. Do you want to go and watch this movie? No. Park Chan-wook does it brilliantly. Chang-dong. Let's turn to Chang-dong. He's an amazing movie director and author. The reality is not in black and white. It's far more complicated and layered. We must express what we cannot express. That is the duty of art. And these are his words. There's no moralizing here. There's this idea that the Tao that can be Taoed is not the real Tao, and things are complicated and things are gray. And one of the best things about Chang-dong and Park Chan-wook is that they grew up under oppressive military dictatorships. They didn't grow up in a utopia where everyone swings around playing acoustic guitars. They grew up where if you said the wrong words, the chong, the double denim police would come and get you and say, "Ya, namsan kala," and they would take you away. And despite growing up under that repressive dictatorial environment, they come out nuanced. That doesn't make sense. Chang-dong, let's say some things about him. Doesn't look very good quality here, but he wrote this in the 1980s. It was recently published in English, Snowy Days and Other Short Stories, an incredible collection. Another of his lines, let's look at this. Although it may not be so obvious, the truth is that so many problems that plague Korean society can be traced back to the division system. Everywhere we look in our everyday life, there is always a dividing line that may not be perceptible to our senses. In these stories, and there's this idea of the minjung, right? There's this idea of the oppressed. There's this idea of representing the 386 generation. There's this idea that we got to stop looking at the elites and the chaebol and the yangban, and we've got to look at these people. And he writes about these people. He writes about factory workers. He writes about women. And then he makes them commit crimes, and then he makes them make mistakes, and then he makes them do things that in a Disney movie, you're not meant to do that. In these movies, the rich people are bad and the poor people are good, and it's very easy. What he does is he shows you the poor people, he shows you the oppressed, and he says, they're pretty messed up. They're pretty messed up, and look at all the mistakes that these guys make. Burning, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, came out 1 year before Parasite. It's kind of the same story, actually. When I watch Parasite, brilliant movie by Bong Joon-ho, to me, it looks like an advertisement. The sheen, the glisten of it, it looks like a Korea that I've never been to, right? I don't live in penthouses, and thankfully, not really anymore, but I don't live in the GR basements anymore. But the Korea that I live, I don't see in that this much. It was always said to be the most beautiful, like realistic portrayal. Burning, I know this country. And my students, when they watch Burning, they say to me, that's a bit uncomfortable because that's where I live. The sound of the bus, the sound of the key locks, the sound of the subway, the noise, the trucks. It looks like the country that we live in. And Chang-dong in Burning did the same thing as Bong Joon-ho did in Parasite. He got rich people and poor people, and then he made the poor people kill the rich people. And if Chang-dong and Bong Joon-ho, they're sort of criticizing capitalism, this is the question that trips up my students, and you'll probably have an answer for it. But if these are anti-capitalist movies, if these are movies that are showing you the faults of capitalism, why do they make the poor people killers? Because in these movies, the rich people don't do anything bad. Yeah, they might be a little bit offended by the smell of something. Yeah, they might have yawned once at an event. But the rich people in these movies don't do anything bad, the poor people do. And they kill. And the question is if Chang-dong, who is a hardcore progressive, not hardcore, but he's part of that progressive Minjung movement, why do they make the poor people killers? Fascinating question to me. You have this portrayal of hegemonic masculinity. You have these two characters. Jong-soo is an aspiring writer. He finished university, he did his military service, and now he's working dead-end jobs. He doesn't know what he wants to do. His mother has run away. His father is going to court. He's a loser. And he's the kind of people that we criticize in society. It's very easy to badmouth Korean men these days, whether it's a Hongdae boy or Hannam or incels or this kind of thing. They get a very bad rep, the poor Korean lads. But Jong-soo is almost one of them, right? But he's done his job. And here you have the opposite. He speaks English. He's rich. He's got a Porsche. He drives around. The most interesting thing about this is he's nice to Jong-soo. He invites them to his house. He's like, yeah, come around, come and meet my friends. He goes in his bongo truck, even though he has a Porsche. He's not a snob. But you have these two men, and it's fascinating what they do with them. And at the end of the movie, I have to tell you the end of the movie, right? He kills him. He kills him. He just walks up, and these kind of old movies, so I can spoil them. He stabs him, and then he burns him. And you watch this movie, and you're like, oh my God. And that's the end of the movie. So I'm always getting to the end of these powerful movies, and I'm like, how do you end the movie like that? And that's acceptable. But it's because they're asking us questions that are very difficult to answer. This is one of the best scenes in Korean cinema. This is Hemi. This is the woman. Do I have a picture of her in here? Yeah. Here's Hemi. She plays a woman who is looking for hunger. The thing about the difference between burning and Ode to My Father. Ode to My Father, there's meaning, right? You follow your family, you do the Confucian duty, and everything makes sense. And so I show that to my students in the first part of the semester. When we get to the second part of the semester, and I start talking about gender and mental health and all of these kind of issues, I show them burning because these are people looking for meaning in their life, but they can't find it. They're looking for something. They're looking for what's the answer to life. She's looking for the great hunger. What's my purpose? What am I meant to be doing? And there is no answer. Aristotle talked about people having a telos, like everything has a telos, okay? Everything has a purpose. And if I ask you, is this a good chair or a bad chair? Well, what's it like to sit on? Because a chair has a telos. You see the way I segued into that? That was quite smooth, wasn't it? And a car has a telos. You get some red cars, some black cars, some blue cars. You get some cars that are expensive and cheap, but a car has a telos to take you from A to B. Makes sense. Okay, I got it. What's the telos of a human? What is the purpose of us? And this is a movie about that. This is a movie about people looking for telos in modern Korea. Having done their military service, having done this, and she dances, and it's beautiful when she does this dance because there's the taeguki up there, and she's dancing topless. It's not sexy, right? She's dancing topless, facing North Korea, while loudspeaker propaganda is playing in Paju, and it smells like cow crap. And she does that, looking for the meaning of her life. And when she's finished dancing, Jong-soo says to her, don't take your clothes off, you look like a whore. We never see her again after that. She disappears. She disappears. This is a woman that kind of gets forgotten by society. She wants to do something with her life, and she goes all the way to Africa and she watches people do these tribal dances in the Serengeti, and she comes back and she's like, I didn't find the meaning of life there either. And I don't find the meaning of life with you, the poor guy, or with you, the rich guy. What the hell is going on? and she's gone. And it's the disappearance and not knowing, which is the really fun thing that Chang-dong does. You must watch Burning, and then you must watch this, Milyang. Sorry, have you seen Milyang? Okay, fewer, right? This is not an easy movie to watch. I've described what Chon Do-yeon is, it might be on a PPT somewhere, as the greatest performance in Korean cinema history. What Chon Do-yeon does in this is, Lee Chang-dong, he makes a movie about Christianity and mental health. And he makes us watch this woman move to a small town, and it really looks like a small town. It really looks like Korea. It really looks, I've got some pictures here, right? You see how much different this looks from Parasite? I know this Korea. I've definitely sat on that sofa while all the Korean people sat on the floor with their back up against it, right? And I've seen these doors, and I've been here. He brings Korea to life so well, Lee Chang-dong. And he's really intentional with getting the supporting cast to be regular looking people as well. People that look like, you know, us. And what happens in this movie is, sorry to spoil them, but that's why I'm here. Chon Do-yeon, she moves to a small town. She lost her husband. She's there with her kid. And then one day she's trying to ingratiate herself into the community of the small town. And she does what people of an older generation might call, what do you call it? Chimaparam, right? Chimaparam, skirt wind. She goes out with her skirt to try to impress people, not in a sexual way, but she needs to ingratiate herself into the community. And that means she has to go to the hueshik, to the after drinks. And that means she has to talk to people. And while she's out trying to ingratiate herself into the community, someone kills her child. And there's a moment when she's on her phone and the child is like, come home. And she's like, yeah, you know, I'll be home later. And they're in a noraebang, in a karaoke. And she's like, no. And so we see her make the mistake that killed her child. And we have to watch her till the end of the movie. This is what Lee Chang-dong does. We have to watch the woman who was responsible for the death of her child. And God damn it. Because sometimes why? People make mistakes. And it's not their fault. This scene, oh my God. So I told you that Park Chan-wook gives you 3.5 minutes of girl-on-girl action. This scene in the Korean church, and by the way, Song Kang-oh is amazing in this movie because the whole time she's acting, giving this tour de force where she's not acting anymore. She's in it. She's believing it. He's just behind her the whole time, just there, just watching, no expression. And his poker face plays the perfect this. And I'm not sure how long this scene is, but it's uncomfortable because you're in a Korean church for about 10 minutes. Some people don't want to be in a Korean church for 10 minutes. Like, it's weird, right? But you're in a Korean church for 10 minutes with the songs, with the hymns, with the person talking. It's like you're going to feel this church. It's not just like dip in and out and you can cosplay it. You're in the church, and then after about 6 minutes, her heart breaks. And you have to watch her cry about the loss of her child as she finds God, finds forgiveness, finds solace, and you have to watch it. You have to watch a young person, you have to watch a person turn to religion because of that. And God becomes a character in this movie. It's fascinating. God becomes a character in this movie that you never see. It's not in the list. It's not like Monty Python and the Holy Grail where it comes out, but she's constantly looking at the sky, cognizant what's going on there, what's happening. And then she goes to prison to visit the man. Look, every time you get a screenshot, he's just there. It's amazing. There's a band called Sleaford Mods. It's very similar. The man that killed her child. She goes there to tell him, I found God, so I forgive you. It's a very noble thing of her to do. And the whole community says you shouldn't do that. Don't worry, that's a very, deep Christian thing to do. I'm going to go there and tell this man who killed my child, and this is a while later, I forgive you. She goes there and she says to him, and the man says to her, don't worry, God has already forgiven me. She's not even allowed to forgive him because God did it first. And in this moment, here you see her gain her faith. You see her believe in God. And in this moment, and it's a long scene, you see every belief in God just go out of her face. And you see, and nothing is said. Nothing is said. It's just all in her face. It's an amazing thing. And you walk around Korea and there's churches everywhere and there's people that have suffered loss. And what I love about Chang-dong, what he did with this movie, he said, here's a woman as the main character and she's flawed and she suffers and she's made mistakes and she turns to religion and she goes away from religion and she's not sure what to do with her life. Spend some time with her. Don't judge her. She's not amazing. She's not awesome. She's not going to save the world. She's not going to flip people over and kick them and do this kind of Netflix portrayal of super feminism. But at the same time, she's not a terrible person who's going to go around as a serial killer. What she is she's a regular Korean woman that's made mistakes. And he's asking, it's almost like Chang-dong is saying to the community, we see you, we acknowledge you, and we'll put your pain up there. And how he does this with people is just so incredible. And that's why, I called it, I think, the greatest performance in Korean cinema history. I'm quoting myself here. This is a bit weird, but I wrote this. This is not Park Chan-wook, but I think I liked what I said at this point when I did it. What we see in this film, now nearly 2 decades old, is what I love about all of the things that I'm doing, actually. This is not new. These are stories that Korean people have been telling each other for a long time, if you get off social media. What we see in this film, now nearly 2 decades old, is the unflinching exploration of a woman and her soul. This is more than mental health. It's a meditation on meaning and humanity. It's a requiem for those in Korea who have lost people. It's an offering of catharsis, a story with no happy ending. It's one that says, we are you, we are together, your child's loss is here, you are seen, acknowledged, you are not alone. And I think there are many women in Korea who have lost children for good reason and bad reasons. No mother should ever have to bury their child, but that's happened. And that's what Chang-dong shows on the screen for Korean people. I think it's incredibly powerful. And when he does it, he makes her responsible for it. That's the heartbreaking thing. I think this is the last movie that I'm going to talk about. Gokseong, who's seen Gokseong? Okay, even fewer. Every movie is fewer and fewer. Can you say something about Gokseong? Briefly, the good, bad, yes, no? No, okay. Okay, no, sorry, I'm just curious, right? For those of you that have never seen Gokseong, don't watch it. Don't watch it. I watched it, and 3 weeks later, I woke up at 4 a.m. shaking. This movie had a physical effect on me. And when I was searching for these images to put on my PPT, I was getting goosebumps. I cannot think about this film without it physically affecting me in a way that I don't want it to affect me. And there's one of the slides at the end, which I don't really want to look at. I didn't choose the worst one, but let's hear something from the director first, okay? I'm a Christian. And if I didn't believe in the God from the Bible to begin with, I would have told this story in an entirely different way. But perhaps I could have answered the question with scientific reason. But I'm not very devout practitioner like the rest of my family, participating in missionary works and such. I sometimes find myself agreeing to the concepts and comments that deny the existence of God. When making important decisions, I seek counseling from the Buddhist monks at temples in the mountains and pray there as well. How Korean can you be? You're Christian when you go to the military service or university, right? You're Taoist at night when you get drunk. You're Buddhist when you go on the weekend to take some Instagram stories. And when you've got a problem, you go to the shaman and you do a bit of this. It's like this Western idea of you've got to be this religion or that religion doesn't make sense here as much in Korea. Sometimes it's more like an aesthetic or a vibe. If you go to the museum and you look at a Rothko painting and you like it, people say to you, so you're a Rothkoist. Nah, I just like this painting. Korean people go to temples and they go to churches and they look at things and they engage with religion sometimes in a way that's very different than Western people engage in religion. Again, I'm generalizing, but when I saw this, I was like, yeah, because in Gokseong, like Milyang, is a place, and the place is a character in the movie. It's the title of the movie. Secret Sunshine is Milyang, that's the name of the place. Gokseong is, in English, it's the Wailing, but Gokseong is, this is Gokseong. I'm pretty sure I've been there. I haven't been there, but you know what I mean? When I see this Korea, I've been there. I know that Korea. I know the things that look like this. This feels to me like the Korea that I know. And this is what I'm trying to get across with these movies, which is sometimes different from other content. They all serve different purposes. There's shamanism in this movie. Shamanism before Pamyo. Ex-Humor came out, and that was very talked about. It was a very big movie. I found the first half very interesting, and I found the second half, it just descended into anti-Japanese patriotism that was really boring. In this movie, they show shamanism from two different perspectives, and they show this ceremony scene again for about 4 or 5 minutes, so it's uncomfortable. And if you suffer from epilepsy or things like that, it would be dangerous to watch this because it's very and it goes like this and it doesn't stop. And you're meant to almost have a shamanistic experience as you watch this movie. And this whole movie, The Wailing, Gokseong, is about who do you believe? Who do you turn to when you need help? Do you turn to the police? Do you turn to the church? Do you turn to the shaman? When something's going wrong, who do you turn to? And the character in this movie turns to the wrong person. And again, it has an unhappy ending. I feel really weird, guys, but I'm such a positive person. Like, I go around the world with a smile on my face and I love life and 하면 돼, let's go, right? I love this thing. And I watch these movies and they all have unhappy endings, but I don't feel like I'm masochistic about this. I don't feel like I'm making myself suffer. To prove this, I've never seen, I've forgotten the name of it now. I'm thinking of the hungry caterpillar, but it's not the hungry caterpillar. Human caterpillar, yes, yeah, thank you. I've not seen it. I've not seen Two Girls, One Cup. I'm not interested in it, okay? But these movies have bad endings. And it's who do you believe? I think it might be the next thing that I don't want to, it's not that bad. You won't, if you haven't seen the movie, it won't affect you. If you've seen the movie, oh my God. This is, the people that have seen the movie, they're like, oh my God, I'm not looking at this. The ending of this movie, I don't even want to look at it. I can already feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. It doesn't look like much right now. But if you watch The Wailing, you get to the end of this movie and you're like, oh my God. The child died. The man died. They trusted the wrong person, but they were good people. Why do good people die in Korean movies? Why does the hero commit suicide? Why is there no happy ending? God damn it. Maybe because the morals and the understandings are different here. I'm not sure, but I've watched them and it's changed the way I look at life and the way I approach things. I need to say about these that I get to watch them through the eyes of students. So there's one thing to watch a movie and there's one thing to watch it on Netflix, on your phone, lying on your side in bed and stopping every 20 minutes to, do something. But I sit at the back of the lecture hall and there's 30, 40 students in front of me and I get to watch these movies through their eyes and I get to see how these movies affect them. I'll never forget when we watched Memories of Murder. There's a jump scene in Memories of Murder when a woman's walking along and a man jumps out and Stephanie, who's from Cameroon, Ghana. Sorry, Stephanie. I think it's Cameroon. She's from Cameroon and she's a very large woman. She was sat at the front. And when the jump scare happened, she fell off her chair. She fell off her chair. It was amazing. And we were watching the movie Sunny. Has anybody seen the movie Sunny? Yeah, Sunny's a vibe, yeah. Watching the movie Sunny, and I've got an African-American girl at the front, and her name is Radiance, and she is exactly like her name sounds. She's just this. You get to the end of the movie Sunny, and halfway through the movie, the beautiful character who gets attacked with a knife, she disappears. And you think you're pretty sure that this beautiful character has committed suicide. Right at the end of Sunny, she walks into the shot, and I will never forget being sat at the back of the lecture hall, and Radiance in this quiet room just went, "Let's go." And that's when I started using that expression, because I'd never heard it used like that. I love the way that these movies can not only show me things that I've never thought about before, but they show my students feelings. And I ask my students to sit through these for 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes. And I tell them, if you want to do some other work, go out. If you want to use your phone, go out. The people in here were watching the movies. And you know what? They all watch the movies. And sometimes they say, I like this one, I didn't like this one. But it also made me understand young people. They don't have attention problems. They have entertainment problems. You show them good entertainment and they're on it. They don't have problems with this. They want this. They want these deep stories, and they want to talk about them afterwards. And so do I. I found watching these movies to be so much fun. I'm not sure I've come up with any big conclusions about watching these movies, what it's done to me, but I love talking about them. And having done this, I want to watch them all again. Let's watch more. And I want to watch 어주수가 없다 again. And I want to be talking about that. I want more people to know about Chang-dong. I want people to watch these movies again. I believe, so I've spoken to you for about an hour. That's generally the attention span I can give people with what I do. So just before I finish, I'll say thank you for your attention. If there was no deep or profound insight here, do please forgive me, but I was just kind of fanboying over Korean cinema because it's taught me some wonderful lessons about this. And it's made me look at the people of the country differently, more than a textbook ever could. It's made me look at the people a little bit differently, understand them. Before I finish, I'm just going to give a little bit of a guango. Denny and Matt both did it. On December the 9th, I've got some young women coming to do a youth panel. This is not the final poster. We're not ready for the final poster or the title or anything like that yet. But this is Sojin. She's one of the women. She's coming to talk. And we do it every year. And these young women will come here and they will talk about what they think about Korean society, what they're interested in. Because it's never what I think. It's never what I imagine. And that's why I like listening to them. So I'll finish with that. But ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to hear them. But otherwise, thank you very much for your attention and listening. Thank you.